Imagine waking up on Christmas Eve, excited for the holiday festivities, only to realize you're not alone, and the thing in your house isn't a family member or friend. Christmas is supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year, right? But for some, the holidays take a terrifying turn. In today's video, we're diving into 3 real Christmas horror stories that will make you rethink how safe you feel in your own home. These aren't the kind of stories you hear around the fireplace. No, these are the true accounts that will send chills down your spine. These stories aren't just about creepy things happening. These are terrifying experiences that people have had during what should have been the most joyful time of the year. What would you do if something horrific happened on Christmas Eve? Would you even know how to survive the nightmare that follows? This first story comes from a woman named Sarah, who had the perfect Christmas planned out with her family. The decorations were up, the tree was adorned with sparkling lights, and the smell of fresh cookies filled the house. But everything took a dark turn when she woke up on Christmas morning to find the living room in disarray. The tree was knocked over, and strange, muddy footprints led from the back door to the fireplace. But that wasn't the worst part. As she walked through her house, she found something that would haunt her forever. Someone had been living in her attic, and it wasn't just the messy space above her. The person had left her family a terrifying message. The chilling part, she swears she locked the attic door the night before. As Sarah desperately tried to piece together what had happened, she began to notice small things, tiny, subtle changes. A book moved from one shelf to another. A dish that was put away was now out on the counter. And there were the sounds, creaks and whispers, coming from the attic late at night. But the real horror came when she decided to take a closer look at the attic herself. Opening the door, she found a journal. Its pages were filled with ramblings about the family, about their habits, what they ate for dinner, and details no stranger should have known. The scariest part, the last entry was written in a hand that was unmistakably Sarah's own. That's when Sarah realized the horrifying truth. This wasn't just an intruder. The person in her attic was someone who had been stalking her family for months. They knew everything about them, right down to their Christmas plans. But Sarah had no idea how they were able to get so close without ever being detected. After calling the police, the family learned the truth. The stalker had been a former tenant who had never left. They had used the holiday season as their perfect cover, blending into the backdrop of the holiday chaos. And the scariest part, they were still out there. Story 2, The Christmas Eve Visitor. This next story takes place in a small town where a family was about to experience the worst Christmas Eve imaginable. The Johnsons had just moved into a new house, a charming but old property that had seen better days. The previous owners had left in a hurry, leaving the house practically empty. As the family settled in for their first Christmas in their new home, something didn't feel right. The house creaked and groaned as if it were alive, and every so often, they heard a noise coming from the attic. But it was Christmas Eve, and they pushed the strange sounds aside, deciding it was just the house settling. As the night went on, the family hung stockings, prepared a big Christmas dinner, and settled in front of the fire. That's when the doorbell rang, just before midnight. At first, they thought it was a late Christmas visitor, but when they opened the door, no one was there. All they found was a single small gift sitting on the doorstep, wrapped in old, tattered paper. They brought the gift inside, wondering who could have left it, but as soon as they unwrapped it, they felt their blood run cold. Inside was a single, antique doll, one that looked strangely familiar. It wasn't until they searched the house that the true horror of the situation came to light. In the attic, they found a room filled with old toys and dusty furniture. items from a previous family who had mysteriously vanished without a trace many years before. But one thing stood out: a picture of a little girl with an eerie smile, holding the very same doll that had just appeared on their doorstep. The family realized too late that the house wasn't just old, it was haunted by the spirits of those who had lived there before. And that night, they would never forget the chilling feeling of being watched by eyes that weren't their own. Story 3: The Christmas Nightmare on the Road. Our final story takes place on a snowy Christmas Eve, where a young couple, Jack and Emma, were driving to visit family. The snowstorm had made driving difficult, but they were determined to get there. They hadn't expected the road to be so empty or desolate, especially on a holiday. As they drove through the wilderness, something strange began to happen. Every time they passed a bend in the road, they thought they saw someone standing in the snow, just a figure, completely still, as though they were waiting for something. But when they looked back, there was nothing there. Feeling uneasy, they decided to pull over to check the map. But that's when the real horror began. As they stepped out of the car, a loud crash echoed through the air. The sound came from the woods. They turned to look, but all they could see were shadows moving in the trees. Jack grabbed Emma's hand, urging her back into the car. As they tried to start the engine, a shadowy figure appeared at the windshield. The face was pale and twisted with an unnatural grin, its eyes wide and staring, not human. They screamed, but before they could drive away, the figure disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. Later, when they made it to the nearest town and told the locals what had happened, they learned something disturbing. Years ago, a family had gone missing in the area on Christmas Eve. They were never found, but the locals believed their spirits still roamed the roads, seeking to pull unsuspecting travelers into their nightmare. And now, Jack and Emma realized they had narrowly escaped becoming part of that terrible legend. These true Christmas horror stories remind us that not every holiday is filled with joy and cheer. Sometimes, the things we least expect can turn our festive celebrations into something terrifying. Whether it's a stalker in the attic or something far worse, the holidays can hide dark secrets. Think you could survive these Christmas horrors? Subscribe for more spine-chilling tales and don't miss our next scary story.